There's something about driving at night that changes the rules. The world shrinks down to what your headlights touch. Everything else is just darkness pressing in from all sides. Your mind starts playing tricks. You see shapes that aren't there. You convince yourself the road feels different than it did in daylight. But sometimes, it's not your mind. Sometimes the road actually does change. I've collected 4 accounts from people who got in their cars for ordinary night drives and ended up somewhere else. Not lost, not confused, somewhere else entirely. These aren't stories about getting turned around or missing an exit. These are about crossing over, about finding roads that don't exist on any map, towns that seem to exist in the wrong version of reality, moments where time itself stops making sense. The people who experience these things all say the same thing. They felt it the moment it happened, that subtle shift, like the air pressure changed, like they'd driven through something invisible, and none of them are entirely sure they made it all the way back.
I've driven between Davenport, Iowa and Rock Island, Illinois hundreds of times. It's a short trip, maybe 15 minutes if you take the interstate. But if you know the back roads like I do, there's a faster route, just a narrow 2-lane highway that cuts through farmland. Locals use it. Nobody else knows it's there. It was late September. I'd been visiting my sister in Davenport and left around 11 at night. The road was empty, which was normal. Just me, the yellow lines, and cornfields on both sides stretching into total darkness. About 5 minutes in, my phone lost signal. Not unusual out there. I kept driving. That's when I started noticing the mile markers. The first one said 14. Then, about a minute later, another one said 14. Same number. I figured maybe I'd misread the first one. But then I saw another. 14 again. I slowed down, trying to make sense of it. The road looked exactly the same. Same curve, same faded yellow paint, but something felt off. The air coming through my cracked window smelled wrong. Not like cornfields. More like rust. Old metal left in rain. Then I saw the sign. Big green highway sign, reflective letters. Welcome to Gray Hollow. I'd never heard of Gray Hollow, and I'd driven this route for years. I pulled over onto the shoulder, grabbed my phone. Still no signal. I tried opening my GPS anyway, just to see the cached map. The blue dot showed me on the road I was supposed to be on, but there was no town marked anywhere near my location. I sat there for maybe 2 minutes, engine idling, trying to decide what to do. That's when I noticed the sky. It wasn't black anymore. It was this deep, bruised purple, like the color right before a bad storm, except there were no clouds. Just that sick purple pressing down. I put the car in drive and kept going. What else was I supposed to do? The road curved, and then I saw lights ahead. Streetlights, buildings. Gray Hollow was real. It looked like any small Midwestern town. Main Street, a few shops, a gas station with those old-style pumps. Everything was lit up, but I didn't see any people. Not at first. I pulled into the gas station. The price on the sign was $1.47 a gallon. That didn't make sense, but I was more focused on finding someone to ask for directions. When I got out of the car, the air hit me. Cold. Way too cold for September, and that rust smell was stronger. It made my throat tight. The gas station door was open. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. A man stood behind the counter. Middle-aged, gray hair, wearing a blue work shirt with a name tag that said Bill. He looked up when I walked in, and he smiled. "Back already?" he said. I stopped. "What?" "Thought you'd be gone longer this time." His smile didn't change. "Same as always, right? Pump 3? My car was at Pump 3, but I'd never been here before. "I think there's been a mistake," I said. "I'm just passing through. I need directions back to..." "Rock Island?" he finished. "Sure, same as last time. Take Main Street east, follow it till the fork, go left. Can't miss it." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. I've never been here before. He tilted his head slightly, still smiling. "That's what you said last time too." I didn't say anything else. I just walked out. Back in my car, I locked the doors and pulled out of the gas station. My hands were shaking. I followed Main Street east, just like he'd said, even though nothing about this felt right. The town was too quiet. Lights on in windows, but no movement. Cars parked along the street, all of them older models, nothing newer than maybe the early 2000s. Then I saw someone. A woman standing on the sidewalk, looking directly at me as I drove past. She raised her hand, waved. I didn't wave back. At the edge of town, the road split. I went left. The streetlights ended, and I was back in darkness, back to farmland. I drove for what felt like 10 minutes, checking my rearview mirror constantly. The purple sky had faded back to black. And then I saw the sign for Rock Island. I pulled over immediately, grabbed my phone, signal was back. It was 11:23 p.m. I'd left Davenport at 11:05. 18 minutes. That's all the time that had passed. But I had been driving for at least 30. When I got home, I searched for Gray Hollow, Iowa. Nothing. No town by that name anywhere in the state. I checked old maps, historical records, ghost town databases. Nothing. I tried to recreate the route a week later in daylight. I found the back road, but I couldn't find the turn. Couldn't find the place where I'd seen that purple sky or the mile marker that repeated. But here's what keeps me up at night. A few months later, I found an old photo online, some historical society archive. It showed a small Iowa town called Gray Hollow that existed in the 1950s. He was abandoned in 1959 after everyone who lived there disappeared over the course of a single week. The gas station in the photo looked exactly like the one I'd stopped at, and standing behind the counter, barely visible in the black and white crane, was a man in a blue work shirt. I can't prove it was the same person. The image is too blurry, but I know what I saw, and I know what he said. Same as last time.
I don't drive at night anymore, not if I can help it. This happened about 3 years ago. I was working as a medical supply courier, driving between Kansas City and St. Louis. Long hours, weird shifts. I'd done the route so many times I could practically drive it with my eyes closed. This particular night, I was running late. It was past midnight, and I still had about an hour and a half to go. I was somewhere near Sedalia, Missouri, rural highway, nothing around except darkness and the occasional farmhouse. My gas light came on. I wasn't worried. I'd passed through Sedalia plenty of times. I knew there were stations. But I must have been on a different stretch of highway than usual because I didn't see anything, just mile after mile of empty road. Then I saw a sign, Millbrook, 2 miles. I didn't recognize the name, but a town was a town. I took the exit. The road into Millbrook was narrow, poorly lit, trees on both sides, branches hanging low enough that they scraped the top of my van. After about a mile, the trees opened up and I saw the town. It was small, one main street, a few shops, a diner, and right there at the entrance, a gas station. The lights were on, but the whole place had this dim, washed-out quality, like everything was covered in a thin layer of fog, even though the air was clear. I pulled up to the pump. The price board was blank, no numbers at all. I got out and went inside. The bell above the door made a dull clank instead of a ring. Behind the counter was a woman, maybe in her 50s. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Pump's not working," she said flatly. "Okay," I said. "Is there another station in town?" "No." I waited for her to say something else. She didn't. "So, what am I supposed to do?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless. "Wait till morning." "I can't wait till morning. I have to be in St. Louis by—" "Can't leave at night," she said. "Road's closed." "What do you mean closed? I just came from—" "Road's closed," she repeated. There was something about the way she said it, final, like there was no point arguing. I left the station and got back in my van. Maybe I could find another way out. The town couldn't be that big. I drove down Main Street looking for an outlet. The buildings were old, but not historic old, just worn down, faded paint, windows dark or covered with yellowed paper. A few had signs: Millbrook General Store, Cora's Diner, Millbrook Post Office. The diner was the only place that looked open, warm light in the windows, but when I looked closer, I didn't see anyone inside. I kept driving, following the road as it curved around the far edge of town, and then it just looped back. I ended up at the gas station again. That's when the panic started. I turned around, tried a different street. Same thing. No matter which way I went, I'd end up back at the gas station. I parked and tried my phone.
no signal. I sat there for a while, trying to think.
The clock on my dashboard said 12:47 a.m. I'd been in Millbrook for maybe 20 minutes. That's when I saw the person. Someone standing on the sidewalk across the street, just standing there, facing my van. I couldn't see their face, the light was too dim, but I could tell they weren't moving, just watching. Then someone else appeared, down the block. Same thing, standing, watching. Then another, and another. They came out of the buildings, out of the spaces between streetlights. Within a minute, there were maybe a dozen people standing along Main Street, all of them facing me. None of them moved. I locked my doors. I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like hours, but when I checked the clock again, it was only 12:51. Then one of them started walking toward me. Slow, steady. Their footsteps made no sound. I started the engine, threw the van into reverse, and drove backward down the street. The person kept walking, didn't speed up, didn't stop. I turned the van around, drove toward the opposite end of town, back toward that looping road. I wasn't thinking anymore, I just wanted out. The road curved ahead. I took the turn too fast, tires skidding. And then I was back on the highway. No transition, no sign, just suddenly I was on the dark rural road I'd been on before, trees on both sides, no town anywhere. I pulled over, breathing hard, my hands locked on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed, signal was back. The time was 12:53 a.m. I'd been gone for 6 minutes. I drove straight through to St. Louis, didn't stop, didn't look back. The next day, I tried to find Millbrook on a map. Nothing. I called the Missouri DOT, asked if there were any towns near Sedalia called Millbrook. They said no. But here's the thing. About a month later, I was talking to another courier, older guy, been doing routes for 20 years. I mentioned Sedalia, and he got this weird look on his face. "You ever stop in any of the small towns out there?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. "Because I did," he said, "years ago. Little place, can't remember the name. Got stuck there for a while. I didn't want me to leave." "What happened?" I asked. He shook his head. "I don't know. I just remembered driving, and then I was back on the highway. But my gas tank was empty. I'd been driving on fumes for miles, but somehow I made it to the next station." He looked at me. "You ever feel like you're not supposed to remember something? Like your brain's trying to protect you?" I didn't answer. Because yeah, I did. And I still don't take that route anymore.
I worked night shifts at a warehouse just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. My shift ended at 2 a.m., and I'd drive home on Route 89, a long stretch of highway that cuts through empty desert and pine forest. I'd done that drive 100 times, never had a problem. Until the night something followed me. It started about 10 minutes into the drive. I was on a straight section of road, no other cars around, just my headlights cutting through the dark. I saw movement in my peripheral vision, just a flicker, something crossing from the left side of the road to the right, about 50 feet ahead. I slowed down, thinking maybe it was a deer, but when I got to the spot, there was nothing. I kept driving. Then I saw it again, this time further ahead, a dark shape, low to the ground, moving fast. I couldn't get a clear look at it. Every time my headlights swept toward it, it was just outside the beam, like it knew exactly where the light ended. My heart started beating faster. I told myself it was an animal, had to be, but animals don't move like that. It was too deliberate, too aware. I sped up, 60 miles an hour, 70. The shape kept pace. Then my radio cut out. No static, no warning, just silence. A second later it came back on, but it wasn't playing music. It was a voice, low, distorted, like someone speaking through water. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was wrong, rhythmic, almost like chanting. I turned the radio off. The voice kept going. I punched the power button again. Nothing. The voice just kept coming through the speakers, getting louder. Then my speedometer dropped to 0. I was still moving, I could feel it, but the needle just fell and stuck there. I looked back at the road. The shape was closer now, right at the edge of my headlight range. I could almost see it, something dark and low, moving alongside the car. My hands were locked on the wheel, foot pressed on the accelerator, but the car wasn't responding. I wasn't slowing down, but I wasn't speeding up either. The voice on the radio got louder, and then I heard something else, scratching on the side of the car. Not random, deliberate, like something dragging claws along the metal from front to back, slowly. I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the road. The scratching moved to the roof. I heard it directly above my head. Slow, went silent. The speedometer jumped back to 70, and the shape was gone. I didn't stop driving until I reached city limits. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. When I got home, I checked the car. I expected scratches, deep gouges in the paint. Nothing. The car was completely unmarked. But when I opened the driver's side door, I smelled it. That same smell, rust and wet earth. And in the dust on my roof, there were marks. Not scratches. Symbols. 3 of them, drawn in a pattern I didn't recognize. Curved lines intersecting. They looked deliberate.
I tried to take a picture, but my phone died the second I opened the camera. By the time I got a charger, the wind had blown the dust away. I never saw the symbols again. But I still smell that scent sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone. And I know it's still out there, waiting.
I need to tell you something, and I need you to believe me. Time is not as solid as you think it is. I found that out on a drive between Asheville and Black Mountain, North Carolina. 20 minutes, that's how long it takes. I've done it 1,000 times. Except this time, it took 4 hours. It was late November. I'd been visiting a friend in Asheville and left around 10 p.m. The road was clear, temperature dropping, but nothing unusual. I got in my car, plugged my phone into the charger, and started driving. I remember pulling onto I-40. I remember the radio playing some late-night jazz program. I remember passing the exit for Swannanoa. And then, I remember parking in my driveway. That's it. No transition. No memory of the drive itself. I sat there in my car, confused, trying to piece together what had just happened. It felt like I'd blinked and arrived home. I checked the clock on my dashboard, 2:17 a.m. That couldn't be right. I'd left at 10. It should have been 10:30, maybe 10:45 at the latest. I grabbed my phone. Same time, 2:17 a.m. 4 hours. I checked my maps history. It showed the route I'd taken. Normal. Nothing weird. But the timestamp said I'd arrived at 2:15 a.m. I went inside, still trying to make sense of it. My roommate was in the kitchen, making coffee. "Jesus, man," he said when he saw me. "Where the hell were you?" "What do you mean?" "You said you'd be home by 10:30. It's after 2. I was about to call the cops." "I left at 10, I said. I drove straight home." He gave me this look. "Dude, you've been gone for over 4 hours." I didn't know what to say. I went to my room, sat on my bed, and tried to remember the drive. But there was nothing, just a blank space where those 4 hours should have been. Then I noticed my phone again. The battery was at 8%. It had been at 96% when I left Asheville. And when I opened my messages, there were texts I didn't remember sending. 3 messages to my roommate, all sent during the missing time. 10:47 p.m. Running late. Road is weird. 11:33 p.m. I don't know where I am. 12:58 a.m. It's not letting me leave. I don't remember writing those. I called my friend in Asheville. "Hey, did I seem off when I left?" "What do you mean? Like, was I acting strange?" "No, you seemed fine. Why? What time did I leave?" "Like you said, 10, maybe a few minutes after." I hung up. The next day, I drove the route again. Daylight, trying to figure out what had happened. Everything looked normal. Same exits, same landmarks. But when I got to the stretch between Swannanoa and Black Mountain, I felt it. A pressure, like the air was thicker. I pulled over onto the shoulder and got out. The woods on either side of the highway looked wrong. Not different, just wrong. Like they were slightly out of focus, even though my vision was fine. I stood there for a few minutes, trying to understand what I was feeling. And then I heard it. Voices, faint, coming from the trees. I couldn't make out words, but I recognized the tone. It was my voice. Multiple versions of my voice, overlapping, speaking at different times. I got back in my car and drove away. I haven't taken that route at night since. But here's the thing that scares me most. A few weeks later, I found something in my car, wedged under the passenger seat. A receipt. From a gas station in Old Fort, North Carolina, a town I'd driven through once, years ago. The receipt was dated the night of my missing time, 11:52 p.m. Old Fort is in the opposite direction from Black Mountain. I never stopped for gas that night, but according to the receipt, I did. And I bought $34.12 worth of fuel. My tank was full when I left Asheville. It was still full when I got home. I don't know where I went. I don't know what I did during those 4 hours, but something happened. And I think part of me is still there, driving that same road, over and over, trying to find a way back.
4 drives, 4 nights, 4 moments where the road stopped being just a road. I don't know what connects these stories. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's random. Maybe the world has thin places, and sometimes when you're driving alone at night with nothing but darkness around you, you slip through. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe there are roads that don't want to be found, towns that exist just outside reality, stretches of highway where time bends, places where something waits for headlights to pass by. The people who shared these stories all say the same thing. They can still feel it. That moment when everything shifted, when the air changed and the road became something other than what it was supposed to be. And they all say they're not sure they came back all the way. Because here's what I've learned. Once you've been somewhere else, you carry a piece of it with you. A smell, a sound, a feeling that won't go away. You start noticing things that other people don't see. Patterns in headlights, roads that look familiar even though you've never been there, exits that don't appear on maps. And you start to wonder, if you crossed over once, can it happen again? If you found a road that wasn't supposed to exist, does it still exist? If you lost time, where did it go? I don't have answers, but I know this. The next time you're driving at night and something feels wrong, the air smells different, the road looks strange, your radio cuts to static, pay attention, because you might not just be lost, you might be crossing over. And if you do, I hope you find your way back. Not everyone does.